I'm live. I continue with Vague Vacations. It is another travel book by Joan Marshall Grant. It's Journeys Through France, and it was published in 1947, was it? Goodness, I only saw it yesterday. In 1947, yes, that was correct. I'm in chapter 4 now, Legion of Honor. We had intended to stay in Paris until Monday and drive in one day to the hotel near Mâcon, where our hosts had booked a room for us. But on Sunday morning, and after another night of adrenaline injections, we decided to spend 2 days on the journey. It was easy to find our way out of Paris now that we were fortified with maps. The road through the suburbs was unremarkable, except for 3 fares. The horses of the roundabouts were a little jaded, but their nostrils flared with fresh vermilion paint, and a sign near the entrance to an American flying field, "Drive slowly, death is so permanent." Yet cars roared along at maximum speed with no apparent thought for their worn tires or the imminence of gigantic funerary tributes of bead flowers in black and purple. The forest of Fontainebleau was still in summer leaf, and by then the traffic was thinning out. Further south, empty roads were to become familiar, for though the foreigner is virtually free from petrol restrictions, being given 150 litres, 33 gallons, at the port of entry, and additional 100 litres per week, the French are so severely rationed that, without a special priority, it is not worthwhile to keep a car. We lunched in Fontainebleau adequately, but without distinction, and decided that a little exercise would be a useful digestive. The chateau was not fully furnished after it requisitioned, but I wanted to see if the Aubusson carpets were yet back. We never found them, for being Sunday, it was impossible to escape from guided herds. So we walked through the courtyards to the formal gardens. Unlike Versailles, where the flower beds are again brilliant, the box hedges enclosed only a few early chrysanthemums, and the pools were empty. I shivered. Though the sun was beautifully warm, the place had always been too big. But now, deserted, it seemed even more overpowering. Between Sens and Auxerre, we saw a small crowd gathered at the side of the long, straight road. We stopped, having realized that it was the dedication ceremony of a memorial to local people who had died for the resistance. We joined the crowd, old men, young men, wearing the brassards of the Cross of Lorraine, women carrying tight bunches of flowers, children running about or glaring from perambulators. 2 village policemen tried to control the traffic, which usually failed to slow down. Would the drivers have showed the same discourtesy to a funeral? We listened to a long speech by a deputy, an impassioned torrent of words. He choked with emotion, and we both felt vicarious embarrassment for him until we looked at his audience. They remained entirely unmoved, knowing that these florid phrases, this voice drenched with tears, were only orator's tricks. The deputy blared on through a loudspeaker mounted on a small van. As he grew still, more lachrymose, the people shuffled their feet, children became restless, and a small boy was hastily led behind a tree. It was impossible to go back to the car, and we began to wish we had not stopped. Desultory applause marked the end of the spate of words. The deputy, obviously well content with his marathon, mopped his forehead and adjusted his self-congratulatory smile to an expression of solemnity. One could imagine it being packed away with his mourning clothes until he required them both again to process behind a catafalque. Then another voice began, a voice of authority, which required no tricks to make the ear attentive. The speaker had been in their resistance and talked from personal knowledge of the two boys honored in this stone. He took us back to the time of the occupation, when the only sound in the night of the village was the beat of German boots on the pavé. The heavy sound, remorseless as the beat of a heart in a condemned cell, had been the rhythm of their lives. The two boys, 18 and 19 years of age, had come as a spark in the darkness, ordinary boys whom we had known all our lives, but they had the valiance which is stronger than all tyrants. Gradually their spark spread. Men, women, and even children had eagerly followed a leadership of integrity. The elder boy had been caught by the Gestapo and died silent after long torture. The younger had lived to fight in the days of the Liberation and had been killed in the battle which drove the Germans from this village. Then he spoke of the debt the living owed to the forerunners. Each of us, when we pass this stone on our way to work, must work better because of them. Each of us who feels his honesty a little frail must fortify his integrity because of them. Each of us who speaks to another must serve the truth because of them. Each of us who writes must find words to remind others that we live because of them. When we are afraid, let us remember their courage. What life seems too hard, let us remember that they preferred death to life without honor. Let us use each day the freedom which they gave us. Then the names of those other villagers who had died in the war were read out. The soldiers killed in battle, the prisoners, the deportees. Each name was followed by the intoned Mort pour la France, a solemn passing bell. As the last post sounded, even more poignant, because the bugles were tinny and the buglers unsure of their notes. The policemen tried to hold up the traffic, but three impatient cars, too large, too glossy, hurried back to Paris from the Côte d'Azur, announced their indifference with blatant horns. The voice was the essential France, the juggernaut vulgarious only, a grandiose toe on her body, temporal. What? The voice was the essential France, the juggernaut vulgarians only a gangrenous toe on her body, temporal. The policeman saluted us and then shook hands. We were grateful they did not feel we had intruded. So that was Legion of Honors, and that was chapter 4, and chapter 5 is entitled Avalon.